Good evening, everyone. This is the October 23rd meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. I am your chair, Jahan Habib. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting of the Somerville Community Preservation Committee will be conducted via remote participation. We will have a video recording available upon request as soon as possible after the meeting. Berta, would you please call roll?
Yes, I will. John.
Here.
Eric.
Here.
Heather. Ryan.
Present.
Joe.
Yeah.
And Jahan.
Present.
So right now we are missing Laura and David Turin.
Okay.
And I see 11 attendees. Is that the same as you see, John?
Yes, that's correct.
All right.
Thank you so much. So we have a full agenda for this evening. We have applicant presentations for the fiscal year 2025 funding cycle. So at the chair's discretion, I'm going to take the presentations slightly out of order. We have colleagues from PSUF available, I believe, ready for presentation. So we can start off with the Nunziato Park presentation. Roberta, if you wouldn't mind identifying the individuals presenting besides John, and perhaps allowing them to go on camera if they so choose to.
Yes. So the way that I will manage the webinar is to in this case, I know who is here to speak for PSUP, so I will promote you to panelist, and I'll be asking each of the people who've come to speak for a project to, sorry, I'm trying to talk and do at the same time, and that's becoming challenging. And then I will promote everyone to panelist as your time comes up. I'm still working on not working as smoothly as it should in theory.
So with me tonight from PSUF is Director Luisa Oliveira, as well as Estelo Regatin. He's going to have to help me with his last name, our new senior public space planner.
Great. Thank you so much, John.
Welcome, both of you.
Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Once in a while, I have these horrible coughing fits, and I'm a little bit in the middle of one, so I apologize if I have to shut my audio off to drink some water. My name is Luisa Oliveira, and I'm the director of the Public Space and Urban Forestry Division. We are a group of 8 people, 4 landscape architects, 7 people, 4 landscape architects, 5 landscape architects, and 2 arborists. And we take care of essentially parks and trees. For those of you who don't know us, I've been with the city for 13 years, have been John in a previous iteration of this committee. And we are really appreciative of the money that comes from this committee and allows us to work on parks throughout the city. I'm going to talk today about the Nunziato Dog Park and Field, but I need a second, sorry. So the Nunziato Dog Park and Field is 2 distinct uses. One is an athletic field that is natural grass and is pretty heavily used, and the other is a dog park. The dog park, I think, was established sometime in the 80s. Yeah, this was formerly the site of a junior high school. I think that might be on one of the slides. Oh, sorry, I think most of you are aware. Is there anyone who doesn't know where it sits right in the heart of Union Square? I think most of you are aware of where it is. It was the site of a high school, of a junior high school. and it's a dog park and an athletic field. There are some picnic tables, and it's also adjacent to the Somerville Community Growing Center, which is a really great resource that we have in our city. And it's on Summer Street in Ward 3. We have been getting a lot of requests for, and also in response to climate change, we've been acknowledging the need for more hydration stations so that people and pets can hydrate. And this request is to put in 2 water fountains. I think we need the next slide. So the dog park is here. As you can see, the dogs pretty much running around. I will say this park probably would not be built in this residential neighborhood today because we have different criteria when we're trying to build a dog park, but it is located here, and dog owners apparently have to bring water with them. So they've requested to put in a water fountain, and that is also true for the athletes who are running around the field. The other thing is that we all know it's getting hotter and hotter, and the only thing we can do is hydrate and shade. So we focused on both of those. Fortunately, when they the engineering office redid the streets, they connected to the main water, to the water main. And so there's a stub there to be able to install these 2. We were pleasantly surprised to know that they did that. So that makes it a little bit easier. And the 2 locations you can see here are on Summer Street. Is that Summer Street? I don't remember the name of that street. It's not Summer Street. It's the one going up.
It's Putnam
Prescott,
Street.
maybe?
Prescott.
It's Putnam.
Okay.
Putnam. Okay. Putnam Street. And then the other one, it would be on Summer Street, directly in front. And of course, these would both be inside the parks, not on the outside. Next slide, please. And here you can see in an aerial photograph exactly the locations that we're proposing. These are the fountains. They're pretty high luxury. They allow you to fill a water bottle, drink, and then also allow a pet to drink. And we would like to put 2 of them in. So we're requesting $200,000 for the design and construction of these. We will need to get either an engineer or a landscape architect to do the drawings for the water connection. And we'd like to produce a bid set. This is a fairly simple job this summer coming up, and put it out to be constructed in the summer or fall of 2025, or as soon as we can. If we can get it in sooner, we would like to do that. Next slide, please. Do you have any questions?
Thank you so much for the presentation. I'd like to invite the committee members to ask questions to Louisa and team. Ryan, please go right ahead.
Hi, Louisa. This is Ryan Kirchhoff. I'm the former Putnam Street resident that just shouted out that was Putnam Street, and a former frequent user of the dog park at Nunziato Field. So I know this well and appreciate the work. How many months out of the year do you anticipate this being usable? Is this year round?
The water fountains and the water features in the city are shut off usually November to about April or May, because they have to be drained and you can't have them on during frost. So it will be accessible spring to fall.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Ryan. Any other questions from the committee? Heather, please.
Hi, Louisa. I think it's a much needed amenity at this park site. So I think that's a important thing to do. I was wondering, do are you gonna need a hot box per water connection or something like that? Is that a part of the construction budget?
Yeah, I mean, the construction budget will
I
cover,
think I froze.
oh, sorry. The construction budget will cover everything above and below ground. So we will take care of all of that. We're hoping that $200,000 is enough, but I'm fairly confident it is.
Okay. And then are you ever able to do these kind of improvements in-house, or does it always have to go out to bid like that?
It depends. Well, it depends on the complication. We wouldn't, when you say in-house, do you mean the construction or the design part of it?
Yeah, I guess the design part of it to get it out to a contractor. Yeah.
It depends on what is needed and whether we will be required to get an engineer stamp or not. And then in terms of the construction, we don't have the ability to do that in-house.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather. Any other questions from the committee members? Seeing none, I have a quick question, Lisa. Do you foresee any challenges with respect to construction or any other obstacles or hurdles as you move forward, should the funding be available?
That's always a loaded question because once you start digging in the ground, you never know what you're going to find. But this is a very simple project. This is really not, we're used to doing much bigger, much more complicated things. So I really don't. And also because they were stubbed up, engineering was just in there. So I would say, I hope not, but I can't ever say, I don't foresee any, but that doesn't mean they don't happen.
Of course, I fully recognize that we can only speak to what's readily available in terms of the information as of today. So I certainly recognize that, but thank you for answering that question.
Sure.
I wanted to see if there were any other questions from the committee members before we move on to the next presentation. Seeing none. So Luisa, I understand that there's going to be the second presentation. Roberta, please confirm this is the Quincy Street open space renovation.
Yes, and it allows me to introduce our newest PSUF team member, Estello Reganet is how you pronounce his last name. And he'll be talking about the Quincy Street improvement. Estello has only been with the city for about a month. He comes to us from the private sector. He's a professional landscape architect, and this will be his first project. So I'm gonna say, Estello, take it over.
Yeah, thanks for that introduction, Louisa. If you go to the next slide, as sort of the namesake implies, the pocket park that is in question sits on Quincy Street between Somerville Ave to the south and Summer Street to the north, and we're in Ward 2. And so, yep, right in the middle there. And for context, if you go to the next slide, the project was completed in 2012 and has served the community as a sort of calm, passive neighborhood oasis that has required minimal work since its construction. And so the design includes a curving wooden boardwalk that leads you to smaller spaces for rest with Adirondack chairs within what used to be a lush planted area with trees and shrubs. Next slide. However, within the last few years, the open spaces age has sort of caught up with it, and the boardwalk's planks have been severely damaged, thus no longer making the route accessible and presenting tripping hazards. And the way that the boardwalk was constructed also has made it prime real estate for rodents. So within the last few years, the ground cover and shrub plantings have also died back, leaving it really barren and needing a lot of mulch. The next slide shows the construction detail for the boardwalk. And as you can see, all the gaps make it a good nest for rodents. And so we hope that the design can explore different ways that the trail can be made accessible, but not accessible to rats. And while the updates to the boardwalk will deter rats, we also hope that We also use this as an opportunity to invite pollinators, next slide, and plant shrubs, ground covers, and perennial species from our hot off the presses pollinator action plan that will create pollinator habitat for this passive park. And in summary, if you go to the next slide, the improvements that we're proposing include exploring the right materials and details to update the no longer accessible boardwalk and make it usable for all, exploring rodent deterrent construction methods, and being able to implement the pollinator action plan. And so to do this, we are requesting a $500,000 design budget and design and construction budget with the following timeline: current conditions assessment this winter into spring 2025, leading to work with a landscape architect in the spring, who will produce bid drawings by summer 2025, and then out to bid with construction between fall and summer 2025. Fall and summer 2026, open by summer, fall 2026. And that is it from me. Any more questions from the committee? Happy to answer.
Great. Thank you so much, Estella, and welcome.
Thank you.
So sure, welcome. I'd like to invite the committee members to ask questions. Heather, please.
Hi, Estella. I think this is such a lovely, lovely little park, and I can understand that it needs redesign due to the rat problem and just kind of enhancements. I do wonder a little bit with the budget, like whether, since it's not designed yet, and we can only speculate what that boardwalk solution is going to be. The application made it sound very much like the intent was to kind of keep the footprint very similar to what it is, but to do enhancements. And so can you just talk a little bit about the decision, and maybe you weren't a part of that decision back because you weren't here when the grant was put together, but to try and bundle design and construction together versus going for a design budget to determine what this rat-proof solution is going to be, and then creating a construction budget from there.
Yeah, and I'm happy to defer this question to Louisa if you know the answer to that. Louisa.
I do know the answer. So the issues that we have, Heather, are that it's no longer safe, and we have rodents in it, and we don't know what the solution is going to be, but there's not really a need to change the design of it. And parks always get blamed for rodents, always, because we do provide habitat, but likely there is someone's pork chops busting out of their trash bin somewhere, and yet we always get blamed for it. But we are going to look at how do we create something where there's not an opportunity to make that habitat, but there really isn't. People do love this little quiet park, and there really isn't a reason to do a whole redesign. We really want to solve the two problems of the walkway, and then use some of our great pollinator action plan work to get plants in there that are going to create habitat.
I think additionally, if I can just add on to that, we're also looking at this to be kind of like a fast-paced project. Looking at that timeline, it's a pretty accelerated timeline because we know the design is right. It's just some materialities that are causing some problems. So having that combined funds kind of lets us accelerate through this project at a kind of a faster pace, knowing that we have the funds committed. So once we have our designs, we can instantly just go out to bid and check off the box that says, like, yes, we have funding secured to put this project out to bid, and just kind of accelerate that whole part of the project.
I think, David, you have a question?
Yes, and this is kind of maybe to Roberta or my fellow committee members, is As much as I think it sounds like a great project and a great park, my understanding, I wasn't positive whether maintenance activities are eligible for CPA funding, and I'm wondering if this can be, to what extent this is really a maintenance project, and to what extent it, the money from CPA can be, presuming if that's correct, that the money can be for, some other aspects of it besides maintenance of the boardwalks.
I'll take a stab at that question, although I would invite someone from PSEF to follow up if I haven't covered it. But in fact, maintenance is not an eligible expense, but I think an argument might be made in this case that where they're actually going to be replacing the surface with a different surface, it's not, that wouldn't fall under the category of maintenance, but that would be a capital improvement.
Right. So I would add to that, we would, if we could maintain this to achieve ADA as it originally was, that would be great. But we also have the additional problem of the rodents. So we are not maintaining it, but actually taking it out and putting rebuilding a whole new element.
Okay. And so I just kind of want to just following up on that. I want to make sure then that the application is kind of, because I think, and I know Estelle is new to the project, but I think he used the term maintenance, or restoration, or or I don't know, something, because whatever it is you said that was kind of made me think of that.
No, we are not considering this maintenance. Renovation might have been used, but regardless, we're not able to fix something that is there. We're going to have to replace it. I mean, we would prefer to maintain it, would be less costly, but we have two things that we're really dealing with.
So David, does that answer your question, or do you have follow-ups?
I mean, I will defer to others with more experience than me as to whether renovation then is fine if maintenance isn't. And to me, I'm not going to pretend to be able to parse those phrases, that terminology.
I may be a little biased here, but I guess for me, like, maintenance would feel like if we were taking up the boards and replacing the boards but keeping the frame there, that would definitely speak maintenance to me. But because we're going to be exploring the different materialities, we're trying to kind of ameliorate two different issues at the same time, it does kind of lean farther away from maintenance and more of like an improvement or a renovation like our other parks.
Understood. Any other comments from committee members? Ryan, I recall you had your hand raised earlier, and I apologize. I should have mentioned you. But if you have a follow-up question or you want to engage in the conversation based on what David has raised.
Yeah, originally Heather beat me to my question, and as our resident landscape architect, she's far better qualified to ask it than I am. Looking at the budget that was submitted, and I know it's early days yet, and it's difficult to guess at what the soft cost versus construction budget split is, just given this hasn't gone out to bid yet. But looking at there's 375,000 of this is for the hard costs specifically, and it looks like, I don't know if you mentioned and I just missed it, that there's a drinking fountain included in this piece of the proposal. Apologies if I just didn't hear it.
I apologize. That might have been because I was doing multiple applications.
Okay.
In one fell swoop.
No worries. Okay. I'm with you. So then it's primarily, let's see, 175,000 is in here for hardscapes and $125,000 for plantings, which 125 for this square footage felt, to my untrained eye, high. But any thoughts on like any proxies I guess we have elsewhere in the city to back up a guesstimate like that?
Well, I mean, this price includes a contingency for if something goes wrong, and we are not obligated to spend all of our money, nor do we aspire to that. So we just wanted to have enough to cover, just because construction has been so high lately that things we could build 5 years ago have, you know, doubled, sometimes almost tripled. We just wanted to have a large enough amount that if something should come up and there's a contingency, we could decide, no, we won't decide that. I was going to say to put in a water feature, because then we'd have to bring in a water line. We're not going to do that. Although there is water there. But we don't, if we can do the job for under $500,000, it's never our intent to spend as much money as we can. So that money would be returned to the CPA fund.
Understood. Okay. And then, sorry if I can ask one more follow-up question. I see there's a pending application for CIP funds. When do we expect a decision on that?
So the CIP application is really where the administration decides which projects are going to go forward. Because this one, it would be funded by the CPA, it's, you know, very likely that it would be, because the CIP is really looking at city spending and the budget. Whereas projects that have their own funding are much easier to gain consensus and move forward.
Understood. Okay, so the expectation is this is a $1 million project, and that's if $250,000 of it are coming from CIP if there's a successful application.
No, $1 million. I think CIP is the backup if CPA can't fund this.
So I would say it differently. When we are looking for money, we're going to grant funds or to, for example, this commission. But in our planning of our work that we're doing, we also have to include our projects, however they are funded, in the CIP. So the total amount we're asking for is $500,000 from the CPA funding. It is included in the CIP, which then will have a determinant of which projects move forward or not. So that's why it appears on both things, but we're not anticipating, we are anticipating that, hoping that CPA will pay for this. We just need a yes from the CIP, but because we're not asking them for money, it's very likely they're going to say yes. We're not drawing from the budget, from the city's budget.
I think I understand. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Heather again, please.
Well, it's actually the similar thing, because yeah, the grant application did make it look like it was $1 million project, with 500 being requested from CPA, 250 from capital improvements, and 250 from a park grant. In which case my question was going to be, what is the hierarchy of funds that you would draw on? Is it CPA first or park grant first? Like if you were to be successful, and also for something where it's sort of like, we like the design, we're just improving it, $1 million sounded like a brand new, like you weren't improving an existing design.
So just to answer that, so when we were first working on these applications, there was a lot of conversations about where we could be pulling funds. And at that time, we were contemplating other sources of funds. So at that time, we did list like park grants as one option. But we are kind of looking at the CPA as being our sole funder, if possible.
There's also a cycle on the park grant, and I don't know if it would coincide with construction of this. And there's a match. So the park grant is a $500,000 grant, and there's usually a little bit over a 50% match. To go for a park grant and only ask for the 250 when there are other needs is not the best use of those funds. Sorry for the confusion on that.
We appreciate the clarification. Heather wanted to see if you had any follow-up questions or follow-up items. Seeing no. Okay. Any other committee members have any questions on this presentation?
Maybe this is a question for Jahan and Roberta, just on process.
Sure.
Is it within our scope to maybe ask for a refreshed submission of the budget page on this? The more I'm looking at it, the more I'm getting confused. So if I think it would benefit maybe all of us. I love the project. I totally am on board with it being a worthwhile project. But just to understand how the number was derived and what we're actually investing in, that would be beneficial to me. But I don't know if we're able to ask that, Jahan, Roberta.
Yeah, so I mean, Ryan, I'm definitely in favor of this request, but Roberta, is this within scope?
I'm sorry, repeat the request again?
Sorry, Ryan, do you mind?
Yeah, no, it's okay. If it's possible for us as a committee to request a refreshed budget form for the submission, just to kind of clarify some of the pieces that we've been asking about.
Absolutely. Yeah, this wouldn't be the only refreshed budget form. So,
And I apologize. This was wholly my fault.
No worries.
There's just a lot going on. We will gladly refresh it for you and give you the accurate numbers. My apologies.
No worries. Been there.
No problem.
Before we move on, I do have a question from a member of the public attending, and that is, how do we keep plants from getting eaten by rabbits?
That is a $1 million question. One of the great things that our pollinator action plan has, in addition to a number of planting designs, is lists of the more rabbit tolerant plants. And again, you never know which way their palate's going to turn, but we drew from that list in the City Hall pollinator gardens, and I have to say they were not as eaten as we would have expected. I mean, we sometimes do a whole park and big swaths of things get eaten up. If there is something that's particularly rabbit enticing, we're going to have to find some way to put up a temporary fence while they get established to not let the rabbits in. This is a problem we face on every park, unfortunately. But again, the pollinator action plan is great in that way because it's so specific to planting that it does address this very urban problem. Rats and rabbits, we've got all of it.
Coyotes too, right?
Coyotes?
On this side, on what side of town? Yeah.
Oh, well, we need them on this side to eat the rabbits.
But thank you for responding, Luisa, and Roberta. Thank you for highlighting the question in chat. I'm going to be mindful of ensuring that we include any questions that come through in chat as well.
And if anyone has any great ideas on how to keep the rabbits out, we are open to trying anything.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa. So we can move on to the next item, which is the Open Space Acquisition Fund. I'm not sure if Lisa, you or Estella are going to be presenting, or possibly even John.
This one's a pretty straightforward one. I'm happy to take this one over. So pretty much what we're trying to do is take the remainder of what we anticipate the remaining funds for the CPA this year, which seems to be about $300,000, and allocate that to the Open Space Acquisition Fund. This aligns with our Summer Vision 2040 goals of acquiring new open space, and we really need to just add as much money to this pot as possible.
Great. Thank you so much, John. Wanted to see if committee members have any questions. Seeing none, I would say I'm, in support replenishing or continuing to replenish the fund. It's not really a question of whether we should do it. It's just more of a question of, as you know, with our with this funding round, making sure that we're aligned when it comes to providing the funds to the applicants based on our priorities and considerations there. So certainly in support of it, John. So no questions on my end either. Great. So I just wanted to see, I'm just going to double check chat as well to see if there are any questions there, seeing none there. So I think we have covered everything that's related to PSOF. So in that case, Luisa, Estelo, thank you so much for joining us, for presenting. John, you're gonna have to stay with us as a committee member, but to Luisa and Estella, I hope you have a wonderful evening, and thank you again for joining us.
And thank you for supporting open space in Somerville. The money is really important, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you. So Roberta, I think we're going to go back up to the top of the agenda with respect to the presentations. So if you wouldn't mind allowing the presenters for the Elizabeth Peabody House siding restoration applicants to come up for their presentation and also their slides that they would like to present.
I will do so. Thank you. I will advance Katie Ausella, I see in the attendees. And if there's anyone else, please raise your hand if you're here to speak for Elizabeth Peabody House.
All right, hello everyone. I'm not sure, I don't think anybody else from my organization is joining. But I'm Katie Ausella. I am the Development and Communications Manager at the Elizabeth Peabody House. I've been with the organization for just over 5 years. So this application is in regards to the building at 277 Broadway. Roberta, you can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So actually, that photo is very important for this application. So we are the former church building that's located on Broadway and Grant Street. Originally the Broadway Methodist Church. The cornerstone on the building says 1882, but there are some records that maybe it was built a little bit before that. We have a preservation restriction on the facility, and we are committed to renovating it while it houses our childcare programs and our food programs that we have for the city. So we have made a number of repairs and improvements to the building in the last 10 years, many of which have been with CPA funding, which I'll talk about later. But this is the next step in that process. So this is a history of the other CPA projects that we have completed. And we really appreciate this committee and the work that it does for the city. We've replaced our entire roof. We then did a building assessment to see what was next on our priority list, which we've been working from that document since 2019 when it was completed. We installed an addressable fire alarm system. We also completed design phase and some investigation for stabilizing our second floor, which was originally the church's sanctuary and has a lot of work to be done inside of it. And
apologies, the title is incorrect on the next one. It's the window restoration is FY23.
Yes, that project is very exciting. We are replacing all of the double hung windows on the first floor, and we are repairing the historic stained glass windows on the second floor. So if you stop by our building, it looks a little bit different now because we have a lot of plywood paneling over where the stained glass windows were, and there's been a lot of renovations done to the first floor double hung windows so far. And it's very exciting, even though my office is right outside where all of the power tools have been living. So I haven't been able to open windows or, have any thoughts in my head for a few months, but it's been exciting. Next slide, please. So for this project, we are requesting funds, $172,000 to replace and restore the siding along the building. So currently, the siding is vinyl. It's ugly. It's outdated. This building has been a landmark for over 140 years now, and we really want to bring it back to its former beauty and glory. This project will help us remediate some damage underneath the siding, which can happen with vinyl. As you can see, it's a very large building. The front piece where the tower is currently shingled, and the sides and the back of the building are all vinyl clapboards. Next slide. Yeah, so here are some, it's really an interesting building. The photos on the left here are from when we had one of our contractors take a piece of the vinyl siding off during the window restoration project so that we could see, for the purposes of this application, what was under there. So it is original boards that are the original sides of the building. And we could see, based on the nail pattern, that the building originally had clapboards on it instead of shingles, which was very informative for planning this application, and as well as what we want to do in the future. You can see on the right that inside the building, there's the former facade, the original facade that was placed there before the tower was built. So there's really some layers and some interesting history here, but we are hoping that around the entire building, the original clapboards and shingles have been removed so that we don't have to worry about doing that removal. This is how our budget came out. We do intend to contract with a decorative arts consultant to figure out the original color, or as close to the color of the original building. As you can see from the historical photo a few slides ago and the photos of the building that were taken last month, the building was originally a much darker shade of brown and is now kind of a tan pinkish color. So we would want to restore the building, and whatever additional siding we add, we want to make sure that it's the appropriate color, meaning that it would be returned to a darker hue. Our contractor, who was the one holding the tape measure in those photos, has recommended that we get cedar clapboards to use to install, which would be much more closely accurate to the original, as well as paper and trim to go underneath the clapboards. And then just to kind of show the commitment that we have to renovating this building, outside of CPA funded projects, we have also grounded electrical cables. We have built the egress stairs seen in that photo. We've also completely renovated, replaced, upgraded our HVAC and boiler system. We renovated our basement ramp, which made our preschool ADA accessible, and remediated some drainage issues there. We also actually just did the same thing to our front access ramp. So again, if you come by 277 Broadway, our front ramp and stairs are brand new and beautiful, thanks to money from the state. So we are really working on making sure that this building is stewarded and upheld for what it is, which is a beautiful example of revivalist architecture, while also making sure that it is safe and accessible and modernized as we continue to use it for our low-income childcare and food pantry services.
Great. Katie, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm going to invite the committee members to ask questions, and I see Ryan. Ryan, please go ahead.
Thanks, Katie, for the presentation. Really appreciate it. So I have two questions. First one is just a layup for you, but can you just give an elevator pitch, 20 seconds, on what your organization does? And I think you touched up briefly on it a second ago, but describe it for folks that don't know it.
Yeah, funnily enough, we are hoping to work on elevator plans in the next couple of years. We are a nonprofit childcare center that has actually been functional since 1896, but we have owned the parcel at 275 and 277 Broadway since 1979. Currently, we were originally a settlement house, so we were an organization that supported immigrant families coming from Eastern Europe and other parts of the world. We still serve immigrant families with our childcare programs. We have a preschool that is serves 40 children ages 2.9 to 5, as well as an after-school program that's licensed for 52 children ages 5 to 13. We are also in the process of opening a toddler center at the Kesher space on Cross Street in that other old church building, which tends to be our vibe. And we also host a food pantry in the basement of our building on Broadway, which provides not only food to over 300 people a week, but it also provides, it hosts a community fridge on the side of Grant Street, and we provide pop-up food programs and distributions to low-income housing projects in the neighborhood, as well as to folks in the shelter at the Somerville Y. So we have a lot of things going on. We also have a couple of summer camp programs in the summer. We have one on-site and one off-site. So that is a long elevator pitch, but we are really invested in the families and children in Somerville and the surrounding communities.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, sounds like an amazing asset for the city. My other question then was, you mentioned there's a preservation restriction on the property. Whose is that? Do they get sign off on the work that you propose or do?
So we have to run our projects by the HPC, the
It's
Somerville HPC as
municipal.
well.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, we've looked into getting the building onto the National Register or getting it on some state lists and everything, but we haven't gotten there yet. But for the city work that we do, yeah.
Understood. Okay, thanks.
If I may,
Sure.
thank you. If I may just interject a little bit, the other building that you mentioned, Katie, on Cross Street is also a major CPA investment. So I just want to give that plug for the success of CPA investment in buildings to facilitate being usable for purposes like this.
Yep.
Great. Thank you so much, Roberta, for the plug. I think it's helpful for myself as well. I'm sure the committee members as well. Wanted to see if there are any additional questions from the committee. Seeing none at this time. So Katie, thank you for coming out and presenting to us. Of course, we value what your organization has done, not just in the recent past, but the long and rich history behind it. And we continue to be supportive, as I'm sure you know. But it's always pleasing to hear from you directly in terms of what the renovation funds or deciding funds will be used for. So I do appreciate you joining us this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Take care. Great. So Roberta, if I understand correctly, the next item is the Veterans Cemetery restoration.
Yes, so I am advancing Nancy from the Somerville Veterans Department, and if there's any, I believe, if anyone else is here to speak for this project, please raise your hand, or Nancy, you can let me know.
Tom Gorman. He'll be
Okay.
presenting.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see Jerome Thomas, our director. He's also as well if you want to invite him.
Yes, so I will. Thank you. I see your hand. And it will just take me a moment. It's been a little bit clumsy today.
I understand.
Yeah, okay. Everyone will be joining us momentarily.
Roberta, can you hear me? This is Tom Gorman.
Yes, I can hear you. I'm going to share my screen. I have your
Excellent.
presentation. Okay. When you're ready, I think we're ready to proceed.
Okay, my name's Tom Gorman. I will be presenting this application for the Veterans Cemetery. I'm a member of the Veteran Memorial Commission. I'm a resident. I'm a veteran. I'm with the Somerville Fire Department. So this the cemetery up in Teal Square. It's a beautiful cemetery. It is the resting place for 69 of Somerville residents who have died in service. The main part, upon entering into the cemetery, there was a granite World War II memorial. Can we get a picture of that, Nancy? Okay.
I just flipping
Yep.
to see.
Okay, so this is the rear of the World War II memorial. It's a bronze plaque with 409 names of Somerville residents that were killed in World War II. That's 2 a week. That's quite a sacrifice the city made. At some point, the restoration expert surmised that someone painted over this to make it look better. So one of the restorations here would be stripping that and refinishing it to give it a much better look. There is 2 bronze plaques on the far right of the entrance to the cemetery that also we would like to have refinished. And in the middle is a bronze plaque that wasn't painted over from Lieutenant James Logan, who got killed in a air mission. That on the left is what that presently looks like, and on the right would be what they would look like after being restored. Now that bronze plaque on the World War II memorial, the front of it is a granite stone where it has to be rejointed and repaired the concrete. There's spalling on each side of it, which could be restored. And they would like to clean the granite to get it back to more of its original state. On the left, there is a bust of the James Logan, which there was a bronze plaque on the bottom part of that granite stone. The top, the bust of him, we would like to have restored too. There's the front of the World War II stone. You can see the joints there that have degraded over time and the discoloration of the granite, which would be part of the restoration of this. Also, there is 2 stones at different parts of the cemetery. In the rear of the cemetery is a stone that honors World War II and Korea vets missing in action and killed at sea. On the right of the cemetery is a stone dedicated to those that served, suffered, and died of Vietnam. We would like those to be cleaned and restored to somewhat of its original state. This up top is one of the existing flat grave markers. We would like those to be refinished and restored, and the final finished product would look like a stone at the bottom. That would honor those 69 residents that are buried there. I was proud to be part of an honor guard that we buried a gentleman 5 years ago that was missing in action in Korea for 68 years. We had a beautiful cemetery ceremony up there to bury him. So there's still a possibility that more people could be buried from previous wars. Another factor in this application would be overhauling the lighting system to illuminate the flag at night. And Nancy there's a layout of the cost of some of the renovations. There's any questions from any members, I or Nancy might be able to answer them. Nancy probably more than me.
Thank you so much for the presentation, Tom, and thank you, Nancy, for joining in as well. I see Ryan's hand up. Ryan, please go right ahead.
Thanks. Sorry, I'm always first. Tom, thanks for the presentation. Thanks for the proposal. Thank you for your service. So you just mentioned the lighting at the end. It looks like that's not within the scope of what's being requested here, right? Is that like maybe a second phase for a future initiative?
Yes, that's correct. So
Okay.
we had breaking it down to different phases. Lighting installation is for the whole veteran cemetery because we have non-CPA funded sources. And just to like the lighting, I know the lighting might not seem like a scope, but it also would help to preserve, with the, preserving the cemetery as well. So that was just part of the last phase of this project is for the lighting and the resurfacing as capital improvement project.
Got it. So the idea is it actually would be done hand in hand with the second phase in which the James Logan plaque and the bust are contemplated. Just funded by other means, right? Okay, got it. Cool, understood. Thank you. That's all for me.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Laura, I see your hand up as well. Please go right ahead.
Thank you. I was wondering if you all have found contractors, companies, or whoever does the restoration. It's a very specific job, and if you have somebody in mind, have talked to them, and know that they're able to do it. And
yes, so we did have we did reach out to a couple contractor. One that other veteran services or veteran agents have used. So we were able to get a referral and actually was part of the Henry Hansen part that we're having that rededication that was also CPA funded in November. So Peter Rossi is one of the contractors. I reached out to different ones, but because it's not a construction, it's more of a restoration, rehabilitation. Most of these contractors that we did reach out to with the time that we were given could not do it. So Peter Rossi was the one that actually did a site survey, even looked to see if there were spigots, water, any elements or anything that he would need in order for his team to actually do this project. He was able to provide a quote and change it. And that's based off of his site survey and our research is where we came with the budget summary and the quote.
Thank you
so much, Laura. I wanted to see if other committee members have questions. David, please go right ahead.
Yeah, I have a quick question just about the requested amount. On the first page of the application, it looks like it's about $54,000, but then further down on page, maybe the final page, well, I guess the funding page, it looks like Somerville CPA is $145,000. Is that, is there?
So when we initially put the application in, that 50,000 was what we estimated for I'm not I'm without looking at the contract, I was way off, but that was just the initial estimate. But once we received the quote, we had changed it to 126,000 with that contingency fee bumping it up to 145,000.
So the 145,463 is the requested amount.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Any other questions from committee members? Heather, please go right ahead.
So I have a process question, which is, have you discussed your techniques and products with the historic, the HPC commission at all? Like, have they sort of reviewed your proposal and approved it?
I'm not sure if they approved it, but we did submit a HPC application, and also to make sure that it does meet the HPC and the state, the standard of interior, the state of interior regulations as it being a historic preservation site. So that application has been submitted. From what I know is that they will not come to a decision until November of this year when they meet again.
Okay, because there's sort of a flow that usually we sort of rely on them in terms of their expertise in preservation to sort of say that this is using the right techniques, or that this will meet the Secretary of Interior's standards. So I think we will need to hear from them about. Am I frozen or okay? No, all right. So we will need to hear from them. We'll need to align with them in terms of making sure that what we approve is something that meets those standards. And then I guess there is some comments in the chat that I've been tracking, and one of the questions being sort of about the spalding of the granite, which is a material I'm pretty familiar with, which is, is there an issue with water? I mean, what's causing that spalding, and will that be addressed in your preservation efforts?
So one of the things that the contractor did say was because that as long as that monument has been there at the cemetery, it has not been touched. Therefore, trying to catch this now will prevent it from getting worse and being more cost effective later. I'm not sure if it's like the water. They did state in our report in the quote that like the wear and tear of it and what might cause it, and the type of the method or the techniques that they use that will help keep it preserved and keep it from getting later on causing more damages or having that all filled in.
Okay. And then do you have reserves? So if you get into this project and it turns out that you needed a larger contingency to complete, would you be able to support it with internal monies or another grant, or how would you handle that?
Yeah, sure. So what we currently did was actually broke it down into phases of what's like urgently needed based off of that. And then if we need to, there's different funding that we had researched. For example, the SHRAB, the state historical, and we also, there's the Veterans Cemetery, the National Veterans Cemetery, they have grants as well. That wouldn't be until next year. So for whatever funds that we were not able to get here or the CPA funded, we're looking to outsource those different type of agencies as well, and looking in what other agencies can look that we can get funding for this type of project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather. Just wanted to see if there were any other questions, any other items that the committee members would like to bring. Roberta, I see your hand up. Please go right ahead.
I just wanted to ask, after the committee members have had the chance to ask their questions, if you wanted to acknowledge a question from the attendees.
Sure, of course. I think we should definitely acknowledge any questions coming from the attendees as well.
Thank you. I'm going to allow Barbara Mangum to speak. Barbara,
Hi,
you're with us. Thank you.
can you hear me?
Yes.
So, as many of you may know, I'm an art conservator and my specialty is the conservation of sculpture and decorative arts. And in particular, I've done many cemeteries. I do both, bronzes and metals and stone and lots of different kinds of materials that one would find in a cemetery. I've worked with DJ Chagnon in the Historic Preservation Commission as well. And I have to say, I'm very concerned about this proposal. I think it's wonderful that people want to preserve the cemetery. I just am very concerned that there has not been a conservator involved as far as I can see. And the problem with that is just that there are some really important parts of being a conservator and doing a conservation project that can be missed when someone is coming in who just basically does modern materials and just new materials. So we don't, for instance, with the granite spalling, I'm very concerned. Why is that spalling? Because that can be a whole question of shifting of the supports, the foundation. There can be water issues there. There can be issues of internals, supports that are causing breakage of the granite. And so trying to kind of more or less glue the pieces back together and fill them will not help with that. So it would be good to know that there's been a complete study of that and that there is an understanding of that underlying problem. Also, just with the bronzes, I don't know what diamond shield is. I do know there are many varnishes, and throughout the city, there have been objects that have been treated in a way that conservators would not normally treat, works of art. And although they may last a very long time, actually with conservation, the goal is to have whatever you do be sacrificial so that you preserve the original, so that the original is not damaged in any way. So part of this is all the Secretary of the Interior guidelines as well. I just don't know how well people have read them and understand what they mean. And so again, the museum, as you may know, I'm president of the board of the museum, and I've brought before this group, objects to be conserved, and I've talked with the Historic Preservation Commission, and I've been told there that whenever we have anything that is kind of unusual for the CPA to be considering, or CPC to be considering, that the Historic Preservation Commission will bring someone else in to review that. So again, I just urge you all to look to the Historic Preservation Commission and ask them to bring in a conservator to just go over these various recommendations and make sure that they are in keeping with conservation principles.
So that was submitted in our application. That was brought up in our application when we submitted it to the HPC as well. As far as getting guidelines from the other agencies to kind of like help us on board with trying to get this project as needed for this type of project, keeping in mind of these chemicals and other that. And that's why we reached out to different contractors as well, and keeping sure that we reach out to the different.
Well, I wish you
the
had
different
reached out
companies.
to a conservation, company as opposed to a company that does modern memorials and things like that. I'm not saying that necessarily, I mean, I think in some cases what you're going to be doing looks great, but I think in other cases, I'm not so sure. And, again, these techniques that you're mentioning are not usual techniques, at least in some cases, for conservation professionals. So that's why I am questioning what is going on.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you so much, Barbara. I think Roberta, you had a comment. Roberta, I think you're muted, self-muted.
Sorry about that. I don't want to speak for the committee, but just I do want to reiterate as the manager of the CPA program, our commitment to working with all of our applicants to identify a scope that is CPA eligible. And so we'll continue to work together after we have a chance to work with the Historic Preservation Commission next month. So we'll work together with you until we are able to arrive at a project that the CPC is able to consider as an eligible project.
Thanks, Roberta.
Thank you so much, Roberta, for those thoughts. Just wanted to double check to see if any committee members have any additional questions that may have been prompted by the recent discussion, anything at all.
I mean, as a historic preservation representative, I would just kind of pick up on what has already been said, and it hasn't come before us yet, and we would obviously seek and provide any guidance that is necessary with the scope. And at this point, we're just sort of we're assessing the general scope itself.
That's what I think.
It's a multi-step process here. And I'd certainly appreciate Barbara's expertise with this. So work in progress.
Great. Thank you so much for the insights, Eric. I certainly appreciate that as well. So Tom and Nancy, thank you so much for presenting in front of this committee. You know, we certainly seek to honor the longstanding heritage of those who have made the ultimate sacrifice before us, and we certainly appreciate all the efforts that you and your colleagues have put together towards putting this application forward. We have always supported these efforts, whether it's veterans oriented or just in general honoring the past as part of our historic preservation commitment. So thank you again for your time this evening, and we'll certainly, as Roberta mentioned, we'll certainly work with you to make sure that this project is a success. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care. Great. So just looking back at the agenda, the next item I see listed is 12 Pleasant Avenue SCLT. Roberta, if you don't mind promoting the presenters as well as the slides.
Good evening, folks. Shantia Anderhagen should also be here. Roberta, I don't know if you're able to see and activate her presence here, joining me as the preservation consultant. There she is. Great.
Hi.
So I'll jump right in. Roberta, I don't know if you're, am I? Okay, you're sharing the slides. Great. So I will jump right in with an introduction, and then I'll pass it to Shantia to introduce herself. But my name is Ben Baldwin. I'm the executive director at Somerville Community Land Trust. Somerville CLT is a nonprofit community organization and affordable housing developer. We're a young organization, and we're eager to complete this, which is our second affordable housing project in the city of Somerville, and provide 6 permanently affordable homeownership units to the Somerville community, while also preserving the historic character of the building. And we can talk more about the building. I just want to let Shantia introduce herself as well.
Thanks, Ben. My name is Shantia Anderhagen. I'm a over 30-year historic preservation professional, consulting now after years of working for preservation nonprofits, including the Society for the Preservation of New England Antiquities in Boston, the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and Newport Restoration Foundation in Newport, Rhode Island.
Great, thank you. And thank you all for having us here. And it was also a pleasure to see some of the other beautiful projects being proposed tonight. I'm here to talk, however, about 12 Pleasant Ave, also known as the Elijah Walker House, built during the Second Empire period in the late 19th century by Elijah Walker. He was a Civil War Union colonel who actually fought at the Battle of Gettysburg, built the building, which was later converted into 6 units of residential housing. So I want to keep this a little bit short, but I'll give a little background on how we got here. Somerville Community Land Trust purchased the property earlier this year through the Somerville Affordable Housing Trust's Early Action Fund with the intention to convert to an affordability program. We knew it was historic. We were excited to preserve the historic elements as well. The purchase process was actually coordinated closely between the tenants. It was an occupied building, and tenants during a market sale can be, at a pretty heavy risk of displacement. So Somerville CLT and the Community Action Agency of Somerville worked closely with the tenants to ensure they were interested in what we do and interested in staying in place. And we worked closely with the City Housing Division and the Affordable Housing Trust to purchase the building in January. Tenants have remained in place, and we intend to keep them in place upon conversion to an affordability program. So I can, if you can advance to the next slide, that'd be great. Thank you. So this is a pretty big and varied scope. It goes further than the historic preservation work. This is a full capital improvement and historic rehabilitation of the building. But the preservation scope of work, as you see here, is summarized here. And you should have more detail in the full submission we applied in September. I won't go into too much individual detail on the line items. I'm happy to answer questions, but there are several exterior historically important elements in need of rehabilitation. The building hasn't seen full overhaul, rehabilitation and renovation in several decades, sort of maintenance here and there over actually pretty well maintained over the last several decades, but is definitely in need of more thorough rehabilitation. There's also a number of interior elements, structural elements necessary to preserve the structural integrity of the building. And we're also seeking some funds to cover a portion of the soft costs related to the historic preservation scope on the project. Shantia, did you want to add anything on this?
No, Ben, I think you summarized it really well. The way to think about this is really stabilization of the entire resource through a number of somewhat smaller projects and somewhat bigger ones, including tightening the envelope, which is really important. So I think you captured it.
Right, and I actually like to add that we're making some environmental sustainability improvements to the building as well, with some of the heating systems, the water, kitchens. So there's also a environmental component to this. Go ahead and advance to the next slide. So we brought on Shantia to ensure our compliance, upfront with the Secretary's standards for historic preservation. Kept this slide here, not for you to read every detail, but just sort of show that. Shantia, any comments on that?
No, I'm very comfortable that the scope meets the standards.
Great, and go ahead and advance to the next slide. So you'll see this is the simplified budget. You can see it's a little bit complicated. This is a $4.5+ million project. We are applying here for $395,000 in CPA historic funds. This is a sort of summarized version of the full budget we submitted, although this is a revised budget, which we submitted more recently based on some additional feedback. Not a huge change, a slight increase in the CPA historic budget. Again, I don't want to go into a ton of detail here, but you can see with our sources where we have already an acquisition loan in place, and we'll be seeking to kind of refinance much of that into permanent subsidy for the affordability program. We're also applying to some other capital improvement sources like Charles Bank Homes, which is an affordable housing capital improvement fund, as well as getting some private debt for the construction phase and eventually we will be converting to a condominium structure, and paying off some of the debt with those sale proceeds. For the costs themselves, this is really just highlighting the historic eligible work, with some subtotals of the other many items here, which you can see the full list in our full application. So I think the numbers kind of speak for themselves, assuming folks can see them. Hopefully you have a version on your home computer that you can see a little bit closer, but I don't want to take up too much more time. You see this is the scope here. It's the exterior, the interior, the structural, and some contingency and soft costs as well. So happy to answer questions about the budget or the scope of work.
Great. Thank you so much, Ben and Shantia. I'd like to invite the committee members to ask any questions they have in mind. I see Laura's hand. Laura, please go right ahead.
So Ben, just to clarify, you said these are 6 units. They're going to be available for purchase or rent or a combo?
The plan, which is not finalized, is depending on financing in large part, is to convert to condominium structure, which Somerville has its own process for that, which is underway. We've begun the process. The tenants that are occupying the building, we worked with them early to determine their interest and eligibility for the affordability levels that we would be placing restrictions on the units. So we believe that the existing tenants will be interested and able to purchase their unit at an affordable price.
And are they all 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom combo? I'm just sort of curious. I'm trying to visualize it.
Yeah, they are all 2 bedrooms, not fully identical, but almost identical bedroom units.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Laura. Any other questions from committee members? Heather, please go right ahead.
First of all, congratulations on it feels like a kind of a wonderful model of historic preservation and affordable housing. And it's a kind of hybrid that we're excited about, and a beautiful application. I really appreciated the time and effort that went into your application. I thought the letters of support were also really helpful and useful to have in there. So thank you for getting them. I had questions. It looks like you might have fixed it in the budget, because I just had questions about the contingency. With the version that I looked at had a higher contingency. It looks like you reduced it slightly down, but it was based on a percentage of the total versus based on a percentage of the grant. And I had some questions about the contingency, and I would also like, and it looked like you had escalation twice, but it looks like you corrected that. And then if you could talk to me a little bit about your contingency, if you could talk a little bit about the basement items. The CPA funded work in the basement. I assume that it's structural, but if you could just kind of talk about how you chose those items and why they're in the grant. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having a close eye on this. There was, I do believe that escalation was included twice. The contingency is calculated based on a percentage of the construction scope that was historic eligible. So roughly 29% of the, I guess you can look at the math here a little bit, but roughly 29% of the construction scope was what we would consider this sort of middle column of historic eligible funds. So we basically applied that percentage to the total contingency amount that we've been carrying. So that is that's how that was calculated. And you had another question about the basement. So yeah, if you look at the building, it is actually, you know, pretty well maintained over the years. It was a previous owner owned it for approximately 30 years. But the foundation walls and the brick piers in the basement and some of the first floor wood structure, really like the horizontal part of the structure, structural support for the building, are just 150 years old, and there's a distinct lean in the stone foundation walls that's just visible from the street, basically. So these are things, you know, relatively normal things that happen over, you know, a century or more, that you know, this is the time, as we are making big investments in the property, this is a time to invest in the structural integrity of the building. And I have been led to believe that you know, some of the structural elements are eligible for historic preservation funds. Can go into a
And
little
Ben,
bit.
I would add that before I came on board, before the organization engaged me, consulting was already underway with a structural engineering firm, Structures North, which I've known for years and is really one of the premier historic preservation structural engineers. So they really know what they're looking at, and their plan is very judicious, but you know, addressing important areas of need.
Thank you so much. David, it looks like you have your hand raised. Please go right ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much for the presentation. Are you applying for both historic preservation and affordable housing funding? Is this being funded under both pockets? I was just trying to parse that from the numbers.
Yes, that is the hope. It is already funded with the Affordable Housing Trust's acquisition loan program, which I don't believe is CPA money. But that's debt which will be refinanced, and we will be applying for a permanent subsidy, which will likely be some CPA funding. The Affordable Housing Trust has a couple of funding streams, including CPA.
Yeah, because I'm trying to, and again, I could be wrong about this, but you know, the interior work, you know, like the staircase and the basement work, my understanding generally was that historical preservation funds had to be publicly accessible. So the exterior of the building work all seems totally fine. But the historical preservation work inside the building, I'm more confused about whether that's eligible, unless that's coming out of, you know, affordable housing component of the funding.
It looks like Roberta has her hand up, so I'll let her jump in.
Please go right ahead, Roberta.
Thank you. In response to your line of question, David, Sarah White and I went over the scope of the all of the improvements that are being proposed, and we parsed what we thought were CPA eligible and what aren't. And what you see presented is what Sarah and I both felt were CPA eligible. And so the staircase and the basement, the argument is that these are improvements that are needed to ensure the structural integrity of the building. And with respect to the staircase, it is an improvement to the original fabric of the building, which is being used for a public purpose, even though it's not public access. So it was on that basis that we felt that this was eligible. If the committee wanted to take a different line of interpretation about the eligibility of those items, that's something that could perhaps, as you point out, be discussed as a potential Affordable Housing Trust ask, because the Affordable Housing Trust has the responsibility of allocating all of our affordable housing funds. Or the committee could allocate it, actually, this committee could allocate this out of the affordable housing category as well without routing it through the Affordable Housing Trust. That hasn't been done before, but on a very small scale, it seems like a reasonable thing to do if we have a mixed project where the committee would be more comfortable labeling a part of the scope under that category rather than under the historic preservation category. So these are all things that I think could be worked out in the committee's deliberation about the project.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that clarification. And I have another question that is not really directly applicable, I think, to our authority, but when you talked about it, converting these to affordable housing units that you're hoping that the current tenants would be able to acquire, would that be, and I forgive me because I don't really know how the affordable housing distribution works in Somerville, but I've gotten the impression that was kind of like a lottery of some sort. And is this going into a different pool so you'd be able to give the current tenants like first refusal, or is it kind of go into a pool of affordable housing units that the city oversees, and they may or may not be the selected, recipients?
Good question. So the Affordable Housing Trust, you may be familiar with the 100 Homes initiative that they have now surpassed 100 homes. They mostly Somerville Community Corporation has been acquiring properties like this, multifamily, small, medium-sized multifamily homes, and they have been running that program in a way that allows them to, if it's an occupied building, allows them to retain those tenants, or in our case, convert to a condominium program, which, by the way, is not set in stone yet. We may just keep a rental program in place. But I should say, just to go into a little more detail, there is actually one vacant unit. One set of roommates moved out to get a 3-bedroom, move in with a friend of theirs. So there will be a vacant unit. There's currently a vacant unit, and that one will almost certainly go through a lottery. And then so the right of first refusal is also there if a tenant doesn't want to purchase their building, they don't have to, but they will have the right of first refusal.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, David. Are there any other questions from committee members? Seeing none. So I just want to thank you, Ben and Shantia, for the presentation. I think Heather best summarized it. I think both the housing preservation aspect and the affordable housing, being part of so integral to the project really makes this a very compelling application, but also a wonderful model potentially for the future. So thank you for making the time for the presentation and also for answering questions. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
Take care. So looking back at my list, the agenda, it looks like 50 Bow Street brickwork is next. Berta, if you don't mind promoting the presenters and sharing the slides, please.
All right, I see Dan Coughlin has joined us, and is there someone else from that will be joining to speak? Thank you.
Nope, it'll just be me.
All right. And I will share your slide.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. This is a proposal for 50 Bow Street brick restoration project. About 5 years ago, the board hired a consultant to come out and take a look at the building at 50 Bow Street to do a review of the facade, the brick facade. This building was built in 1874. And to our knowledge, there hasn't been any major brickwork projects completed on the building since then, other than a few here and there, but nothing major, including when the building was converted to condos in 2005. So next slide. So they came out, they did a review of the brick. This is kind of some of the existing conditions that you can see. So you can see there's some receding mortar there. Go to the next slide. Several of the chimneys have large cracks and issues up, these are above the mansard. There's some long vertical seams that are also issues. Go to the next slide. So after we had that review, we put the project out for bid. We had 4, I think, different mason companies come out. And they all pretty much said the same thing, which was basically the entire building needed to be repointed. So last year, or a few years back now, we applied through SHPC, Historic Preservation Commission, and were approved for the project. Last year, we raised funds through an assessment with the building and completed the east side, which when you're looking at this photo, it's the left side of the building. The consultant felt like that was the most, the side that needed it the most, had the most issues. There was 2 chimneys up above that were in especially bad shape. So we completed that side of the building last year. Go to the next slide. And then, so basically we're looking for funds to help repoint the front of the building. Funds, the mason gave us a new quote this last year, earlier this year, and the prices, like everything, have gone up considerably. So we were looking for some help to do the front. We figured that the front, because it is street facing, because it is such an important building to the streetscape and to kind of the Union Square historic story, we felt like that asking for some funding to help repoint the front was appropriate. Next slide. So these are some photos. The next few slides will be photos of the east side, which was completed last year. And we worked with a company called JMS Masonry. We felt like that they did a great job. They did everything that the HPC asked them to. And yeah, we thought they did a great job. Big improvement. Yeah, you can go to the next one. So this is just a description of the scope of work for that first side and the quote. Go to the next slide. The next slide. So then this is the front elevation. So as you can see, the project for just the front, the quote is $136,000. Next slide. For the right elevation, which we will, our idea is to try to do one side a year. But as you can see, the cost is going to be a determining factor on whether or not that's doable. So the right elevation is $32,000, and then the rear elevation is $140,000. Next slide. So this is, as you can see, this is for the remaining project. It'll be $308,000. This represents the construction costs. There will also be fees for project management that we would probably hire our building management company, GB Property, to run the project. Next slide. This is the back of the building, which is also needs to be fully repointed. Next slide. And then this is the one side that, which is why the cost was less. It was only $32,000 to do the right side. They thought we could do the bottom half, basically underneath that second floor header, granite header, and down is where the major issues are with the mortar. And next slide. This is just back to the front. And then I think there's one final slide that breaks out the costs. So that first line, the east facade, was completed and paid for again through, we raised money here at the building. So it was a capital project. It was $59,000, and then there was another $6,000 on top of that for management fees. The west and the south facade are both pending and we are projects that we hope to take on in the next couple of years. But we thought that because the front street facing side is also something that needs to be done, we thought that maybe applying for CPA funding would be appropriate. Yep, and that's it.
So thank you so much, Dan, for
Sure.
the presentation.
Sure.
I wanted to see if the members of the committee have any questions for you. John, please go right ahead.
Yeah. So I see you have $136,000 for this project, which gives you like a 9% contingency, and then additionally you had a little over $13,000 for management fees, reducing your contingency down to $400. What other sources of funds do you have if work escalates?
We would use building reserves for any contingencies. So we currently have around $45,000 in building reserves that we could put towards contingencies, or we could raise money through an assessment on the building owners.
Oh, thank you.
Yep. We wanted to keep, the ask to basically to as low as possible. So keeping it to the construction costs and to the management fees was kind of the idea.
Thank you.
Sure.
Great. Thanks so much, John. Wanted to see if there are any other questions from committee members. I'm going to ask a quick question for you, Dan.
Sure.
Just wanted to get better sense. I know that when it comes to masonry and repointing work, of course, there's seasonality aspects of it. Where during certain parts of the year, especially here in the Somerville / New England area, there might be some I'm not going to call them restrictions, but prohibitions, if you will. Have you considered that as part of your timeline? I mean, obviously you're coming here for funding, but then have you been able to sequence that in, meaning once you assuming that there's funding secured, then when the project is going to commence? Because I'm just thinking about this, the integrity of the structure and making sure that when it's exposed to, these elements, that there won't be any additional damage.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, working with JMS Masonry, they said that the ideal time is spring to late summer is the ideal time to do these projects. But they do have the capability of kind of enclosing the facade and using heaters. So they do work during the winter as well. Mm-hmm. So depending on when, if we do get funding, depending on when that was released, or depending on when we had to use it by, I don't think that should be an issue. The weather shouldn't be an issue. If we were awarded funds next fall, maybe we could squeeze it in before winter.
Sure, I understand, and that's really reassuring to know that the weather is not going to be a limiting factor here.
Yeah, it shouldn't be.
That's great. So I wanted to again see if any committee members have questions.
Easy.
Okay, seeing none. So Dan, thank you again for coming out to present. Obviously, the structure is a beautiful structure. I pass by it all the time, and I think the preservation is really critical, not just for those who are using it, but also for the city of Somerville as well, because it has historic significance, as well as I think just an amazing building as well. So we certainly appreciate your time, and thank you again for coming out this evening. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
See you there.
Bye. So moving right along, the next item is Somerville Museum Artifact Preservation, balance of FY24 application. Roberta, would you mind doing the honors here?
Hi, sorry about that. Yes, thank you. I've advanced Barbara Mangum to speak for the museum. And Barbara, did you bring anyone with you?
No, I didn't.
This evening? Okay, all right. So
I'm not sure why you can't see me. Maybe that's normal.
that's funny. We saw you earlier this evening.
Oh, really?
We did, yeah.
Oh, here we go. Now I can see that there's a video thing I can turn on.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Okay.
You want to start the slides? You can advance it. I think if everyone knows the Somerville Museum request, it is for 3 projects, preservation of historic archives. These are all projects that I had asked money for last year, but there wasn't enough money. We did get a little bit of money, $10,000 for doing some painting conservation, and that's actually happening now. These are the ones that there was no money for. So it's the preservation of historic archives, the conservation of the 1894 Stone family suite of furniture, and the restoration of the pre-1884 Loring wrought iron rails on Central Street. And you can see in that picture the wrought iron rails that I'm talking about right there. Okay, you can advance the pictures. Yeah. So this is, we had to move all of our archives out of the museum in order to do the installation of climate control, which is a major project that we're undertaking right now with ARPA funds. And this is both for what had to be removed was both books and archives. And so all the boxes that you're seeing here are boxes of pretty much archives that we are not going to be able to go through this year in order to figure out what's in them even. We do have a number of boxes that have gone through, and we actually have a whole group of shelves at the museum that have archives as well. So trying to get this all to fit into one small room at the museum is a real difficult task. And what we're asking money for is $70,000 to hire Museum and Collector Resources, which was the group that we hired in 2023 to go through the collections that were coming back from offsite and to get those into collection storage. So this company can also do the archives and help us with getting the archives so that we understand what we have, that we preserve those archives by getting them out of the acidic boxes and into acid-free folders. And then we also can get location aids so that we can find them for people so that they can be accessed in the future by the public. Okay, we can go to the next one. This is our one of my favorites, which is the suite of furniture that was really is a testament to a very different time in Somerville when there were farms and large areas of land. And if you've ever seen the elm tree on at Milkrose Cemetery, you'll know what a beautiful, huge, large elm tree looks like. This was on the Rand family, which is, you know, one of our earliest families here in Somerville. They lived near Somerville Avenue, which was called Milk Row. And that family farm passed into the Stone family, and we now have a Stone Avenue, you know, in Somerville because of this farm. And Frederick, who was actually also a bank president down in Union Square, had this suite of furniture made when it was Somerville Ave was actually created in 1894 from Milk Row. So it was a smaller road at that time, and they widened it because of the huge number of people that were coming into Somerville at the time. So Somerville went from about 500 people in 1840 to over 100,000 in 1900. So this is really speaking to this time of change. So all of this furniture was made from that one tree, the elm tree. So on to the next one. This is the wrought iron railings that are on Central Street. And these are railings that were brought over from the Loring Library when it was torn down. It was on Central Hill. And it was built around 1884. So we know that this wrought iron was in that structure. We don't know exactly when it was made, but it would have been at least by that time. And so again, when it was torn down in the early 1900s, that came over to the museum. George Loring was actually on the Somerville Historic. He was the Somerville Historical Society. He was one of the founding members, and he arranged to have this brought over and eventually incorporated into the museum's building. So this is already under a preservation deed restriction as part of this Loring entryway into the museum. And we cannot actually really effectively maintain it at this point because it needs to undergo this restoration work to remove all this flaking paint and reprime it and repaint it. And with wrought iron, it's all put together with mechanical fasteners. There's no real welding. And so it all gets taken apart. And then there will also be restoration that's involved. Next page, please. Thank you. So I was told to present this similarly to the way that I did last year, which is with priorities. And so as you can see, the highest priority, priority one, I would say, is the archives, because we really, as you know, the museum has 1.5 staff persons that run the place. And then we have another historic manager now, historic events manager, but they are not allowed to work on this kind of material. So we do not have the staff in order to undertake this project. So in order to make it useful, we're asking for 73,000 for this. And then in addition, the second priority, I would say now, is the restoration of the wrought iron railings. And that again is because it's really needed so that this material can be maintained and preserved. And then finally, the suite of furniture, as you could see, it's not exhibitionable yet. So even though it is a wonderful, really heirloom for the museum, we can't show it to the public because it's in such poor condition. So altogether, it's about $114,000, I believe, that we are asking for. There is some soft costs that we've added here for really the first time. Normally, we have not asked for that, and we have just found that, again, we've grown so much that we really need to ask for money to help us manage the projects. And so I believe that is everything. And thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Barbara. I appreciate your presentation. I also wanted to see if any committee members have questions.
I hope you all will come to the museum.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, I just wanted to mention, Barbara, obviously this committee has been supportive of, Somerville Museum and the wonderful works, restoration works that have been, undertaken, and we continue to support, both the mission of the Somerville Museum, because it is a cultural resource for the city and its residents and others to enjoy. So we all appreciate all the effort that you and your colleagues have put into both the application, but also continuing this journey of restoring the museum to its true glory. So thank you again for your time this evening, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Okay, that really does mean a lot to me. So thank you all very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. So Roberta, I believe we have gone through all the applicant presentations. Would you please confirm that we haven't missed anyone?
Yes, that concludes all of our applicant presentations for this evening.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Roberta. So I think we can move on to the approval of minutes from October 7th, 2024. I just wanted to double check with the committee to see if you had the chance to review the minutes and if there are any edits, suggested edits, or changes that you would recommend at this time. Laura, I think you may be muted if you. Oh, sure, no problem.
Here you go. Yes.
Thank you.
One small thing, top of page 5, there was a reference, it was to adjourning the meeting. It actually looked like it was from a previous meeting. But anyway, it just should be erased or moved or something. Because then toward the bottom, there's an adjournment. And to me, it looked like it was from another date.
Thank you for that catch.
Other than that, I thought they looked fine.
Great. Thank you so much, Laura. I wanted to see if there were any other comments, edits, suggested edits. Heather, please go right ahead.
Page 5, item 5 ends with Highmark move to endorse to adjourn the meeting, when I think it should read Highmark move to endorse the ballot.
Thank you. Thank you also for that catch.
And then I wondered if we could all just collectively look at page 4, first paragraph, where we're talking about AR and PR.
Page 4, first paragraph.
First paragraph, page 4.
Am I looking
At
at
first
the
I
wrong?
thought there was a typo.
The PR, the reference to preservation restrictions in that top paragraph?
Yeah.
So what was
I
confusing?
thought that maybe it was meant to be AR instead of PR in that first paragraph.
I think it's preservation restrictions, but she never put it in parentheses. Like I had to go back and find it. Do you know, like,
Yeah, like the first time, like in the first page when you first refer to preservation restriction, do a
Yeah.
little like PR, AR. But no, but on that first paragraph, I just wanted to make sure the intent was correct.
Yeah, Heather, I think I was asking about the feasibility related to a preservation restriction, even in the context of an affordable housing project. So I personally am okay. I think this reflects my intent.
Okay. Let's see, first paragraph.
Starting with Kirikoff asked.
So, whether that impacts requiring a PR. So first I wanted to make sure, is this the first place where I need to put PR in parentheses?
I think it's in the first page, first paragraph. You
Okay.
mentioned you could do it there.
Okay. And so I'm sorry, I was a little bit lost trying to find where you were. So
Okay.
what is the change? Any additional changes that I needed to make in this section?
No, not for me.
Okay. Okay, and I want to find the place where I had, oh, Highmark moved to approve the ballot measure. Or not to endorse.
Endorse.
Okay. And then,
And then that addresses what I brought up, because it looks,
okay,
you had the
thanks.
adjournment above,
Right.
item, so
Okay.
you're good.
All right, thank you all for helping me out with that.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to see if there were any other committee members who had suggested edits while Roberta has the meeting minutes up on the screen. Seeing none, in that case, if somebody would like to make a motion to adopt the modified meeting minutes, I would welcome that.
I can do that.
Thank you, Laura. Is there a second available as well?
I can second
I'll
that.
second.
You got third even.
All right, I'll call the roll.
Thank you.
Heather. Heather, we didn't hear you.
Oh, yes, I approve.
Ryan.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
John.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Eric.
Yes.
Laura.
Yes.
Jahan.
Yes.
That is all of you, and it is unanimous. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. So having approved meeting minutes, I think we're going to move on to the informational updates. Roberta, if you don't mind, starting with public outreach, please.
Sure. So it has been quite an exciting season for public outreach. Concluded almost, but not quite, the last of our outreach engagement events. There's one more truck or treat at City Hall tomorrow afternoon. So if any of you have any small children in your care, it might be a fun event to come by and grab some candy. But I just took a tally earlier today, and in addition to the mailer, which all of you should have received, and the banners and signs that were printed and posted all over the city, celebrating the 10-year anniversary, we've tabled at 6 different outreach events this season. So I can't think if there was anything else, but that was quite a lot. So it has been a very busy season for public outreach. We will have another public outreach push in the new year. We typically want to do some more public engagement before or as part of the annual review process. So I would welcome ideas if anyone has some fresh thoughts about how to do public outreach for the next season. So moving through the informational updates, next up is a member search. So thank you to Eric and John, who are both part of our member search team. We interviewed 6 candidates and arrived at a recommendation of 2 of those candidates to fill 2 open seats as of January. And that recommendation is going to be sent tomorrow down to the mayor's office. So they'll be able to move through that process hopefully quickly. And my goal is that by January, we might be able to have 2 new members.
Are you able to share any info about the recommended candidates or not?
Not yet, because they need to go complete the vetting process first
Okay.
before. So it's a many stage process,
Yes, I can
as
imagine.
some of you may have experienced. And
It was a committee of members of, it was a subcommittee of the CPC that interviewed them, or there was city, it was a bunch of.
so the plan that we presented last summer for how to make the candidate selection specified that we would have a representative for each of the 3 program areas and separately a representative from the committee. So Eric served as the representative from the committee and John served as the representative from the open space and recreation program area.
Okay, thanks.
I will use my words lightly because I know we can't talk about the specifics, but I just wanted to give a huge shout out and thank you to Roberta because the amount of applicants we got for the CPC was awesome. 15, maybe I shouldn't have said that. A lot of applicants, a lot of great diverse pool of people, and just a lot of management to get that many people in for their interviews and whatnot. So huge thank you to Roberta.
They were really fantastic candidates too. It was a tough decision, and any one of them could have made a good member, a good addition to our team.
Yeah, no, great job. I mean, that's certainly speaking from a commission that's having trouble getting enough people to interview. It's great.
Yeah, I think both could contract Roberta to find commissioners for various other groups. You have a side gig brewing there.
Yeah, Roberta, can the Conservation Commission hire you?
Well, I feel like it's by extension, like not that far outside of my job description to give that kind of support for other committees that have a representation on our board that need help with recruitment. I wouldn't mind doing what I can to help with recruitment.
Well, certainly, and I mean, seriously, I mean, I do think it's not unreasonable for you to pass, maybe some of your reject, folks onto Malik. Yeah, if you think that they would, maybe, be suitable, for any of the other commissions,
Yeah.
Historic preservation as well, I know is needs members.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'll suggest to the people when we have to finally write disappointment letters to all of them that they consider serving on some of these other boards.
Yeah, I mean, or just pass them on to the city representatives of those boards and let them reach out to them.
That too. Yeah. As part of the recruitment process, I created a questionnaire that people can submit to express interest in serving on any boards and committees. And if I receive any responses to that questionnaire, I pass that information on to the liaisons for those boards.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that. Any other questions about the member search? All right. So moving on, our schedule. Next meeting, I will have prepared for you the fall report that shows the final funding availability and project status updates that will help you have the information you need to begin the deliberation. And so we budget hopefully about maybe 2 to 3 meetings to make decisions about the funding applications, but you can take as much time as you need. You don't need to rush to a decision about any of the applications. And if you need more information, if they need more information, you can take the time you need to vet the projects fully so that you can feel confident with the recommendations that you make. And the one thing that I wanted to mention, I sent an email earlier today, but I also included in your meeting packets a flyer for the Henry Hansen Park ribbon cutting. And unfortunately, if it goes ahead on the date that's been selected, Thursday, November 7th. I'm not available that day. I'm going to be away at a conference. So PSEF would love to invite a member of the CPC to say a few words about this project. So please let me know if you might be available and if you might be interested in speaking for the CPC and congratulating the city on the completion of the project. The ribbon cutting again is 9 to 10 a.m. on Thursday, November 7th. And I think that's all that I have for you this evening.
Roberta, thank you so much for all your updates and of course your hard work, both seen and recognized by this committee, but even behind the scenes, all the things that you do. So I just want to say that we really appreciate everything you're doing to facilitate not only the committee but also working with the applicants and really moving this process along. So having said that, I just wanted to see if anyone has any comments, anything for the good of the meeting that we should be discussing that may not have made it to the agenda at this time.
Just actually backtracking to the schedule and the application deliberations.
Sure.
I'm hoping that we can finish it up in this year, just because in January I won't be here anymore. I'll do my best. I mean, I understand it takes whatever amount of time it takes, but I'll just point that out that you'll have new folks who would not be familiar with all the applications in January.
That's a really great point, Laura, because like you, I won't be here as well, so I could pass along my notes if should it come to January, but that's the extent of support I'll be able to provide. So I do think that if we are able to, it would be helpful. But if the timing or the scheduling doesn't work out, then that's fine too. We'll provide. I think Laura, you and I can provide as much notes or support or views that we can during the remaining meetings.
Yeah, I very much appreciate your pointing out that constraint. So we'll do our best to make all of the decisions that we can before the end of the year and recognize if there are any projects that need to go beyond the end of the year to find a way to ensure that the people who come in to take your places are informed about the process and are how we arrived at this point.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Great. And I appreciate making the point, Laura. Thank you so much. Wanted to see if there are any other comments from any other committee members, anything else for the good of the meeting?
Just a quick question. There was an email that came out about there being an uptick in the amount of money the state was setting aside for this stuff. And what I meant to ask, what are the repercussions for us on that?
So those funds, that will be something that I cover in the annual report that you'll be getting at your next meeting.
Okay.
But in short, those are funds that will go into the pool to be carried over into the future because we haven't been able to appropriate them this year. We can't actually spend that money this year, but that will be part of the accumulation that we'll have to bolster our budget next year.
Okay.
Thank you so much for that, Eric. Any other thoughts, any other comments that might be helpful?
Well, I don't know if it's helpful, but it would be nice, I think, and if we could get together in person again before Jahan and Laura leave the committee. I'm the last one to speak since I was a no-show at the other event. But that aside.
No, not at all. I think it is helpful. I mean, again, Roberta, if you have capacity to organize something prior to our departures, of course, yeah, I think we would welcome it. At least the committee members would welcome it. So that's a great thought, David. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I am always happy to send out a doodle poll to meet in person. I love that stuff. So I will go ahead and do that. Thank you for raising that.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for taking it on.
Yeah.
Great. Great. Boy, we've had some really great feedback and, in outside of the agenda comments here, I wanted to see if there's anyone else who has any thoughts, I think we're on a roll here as a committee, with respect to the non-agenda items. Okay, I'm seeing none. I won't pressure folks to speak up. What I will say is if there are no additional items to discuss, if somebody could make a motion to adjourn.
So shy. I'll do it. Shoot. Yeah. Adjourn.
Thank you, Laura.
I'll
Can
second.
we have a second, please?
I'll second. I haven't seconded anything in a while.
All right.
Thank you. Thank
Then
you,
I will
Eric.
call the
Roberta?
roll. Yep. Heather,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
and Jahan.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks
So much.
Yes.
See you on
Bye.
November 20th. Take care.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.